The iron collar around Karga's neck weighed less than the shame it carried. But both had become familiar burdens over the 3 years, since the slavers dragged her from the smoking ruins of her clan settlement. She stood in the market square of Milford with 19 other orcs, their wrists bound, their eyes downcast, while human buyers circled like vultures assessing carrion. The spring sun beat down mercilessly, and sweat trickled down her green skin, tracing paths through the dust and grime that no amount of rain seemed to wash away anymore. "This one's strong," the slaver called out, grabbing Karga's arm and forcing her to flex. She was tall even for an orc woman, nearly 6.5 feet, with muscles earned through years of forced labor in the quarries north of here. Her tusks were small and well-formed, her dark hair hung in a thick braid down her back, and her amber eyes held a defiance she had never quite managed to extinguish despite everything. "She can haul stone, plow fields, whatever you need. Young too, maybe 25 summers. Perfect for breeding if that's your interest." Karga's jaw clenched, her tusks pressing against her lower lip. She hated this part most of all, not the chains, not the hunger, not even the back-breaking work. It was being discussed like livestock, like she was nothing more than muscle and flesh to be bought and sold and used. Around her, potential buyers nodded or shook their heads, calculating profit margins and labor needs. "How much for the big female?" a gravelly voice called from the crowd. The slaver, a rat-faced man named Declan who reeked of cheap ale and cheaper perfume, grinned widely. "Ah, you've got an eye for quality, friend. This one's prime merchandise. 50 gold pieces and she's yours. 50 gold. Karga had heard the price before. She was one of the most expensive in the lot because of her size and strength. Most of the humans who came to these auctions were farmers or merchants looking for cheap labor. 50 gold was more than many of them saw in a year. She would likely stand here until sunset, then be loaded back into the wagon for the next town, the next market, the next humiliation. 50 gold is steep," said another voice, this one younger and clearer. Karga's eyes flicked toward the speaker despite herself. He was human, perhaps in his late 20s, with light brown hair that fell to his collar and green eyes that seemed to actually see her rather than looking through her. He wore simple but well-made clothes, a merchant's attire, with a heavy leather satchel at his side. "What guarantees do I have that she won't run the moment I turn my back?" Declan laughed, a sound like rocks grinding together. "The collar's spelled friend. She runs, she gets a reminder that'll drop her to her knees. Besides, orcs know what happens to runaways. They get caught, they get sold to the mines or the fighting pits. This one's smart enough to know when she's got it good." The young merchant stepped closer, and Karga found herself meeting his eyes. There was something in his expression she could not quite name. Not pity exactly, though she had seen plenty of that. Not lust, thank the old gods. It was something softer, something that made her chest ache in a way she had almost forgotten. "What's your name?" he asked her directly. She blinked, surprised. Most buyers never asked. "Karga," she said, her voice rough from disuse. They did not encourage conversation among the slaves. "I'm Owen," he said, then turned to Declan. "I'll take her. 50 gold." The slaver's eyes widened, then narrowed with suspicion. "You'll take her, just like that?" "Don't you want to check her teeth, test her strength, make sure she's 50 gold?" Owen repeated, already reaching into his satchel. He counted out the coins with practiced ease, stacking them in Declan's grimy palm. The slaver bit each one, testing for authenticity, his grin growing wider with each verification. "Pleasure doing business with you," Declan said, pocketing the coins and producing a key from his belt. He unlocked the chain that connected Karga to the other slaves but left the collar and wrist bindings in place. She's all yours. Don't come crying if she causes trouble. Owen took the chain without comment, his fingers careful not to jerk it. Come on, he said to Karga, his voice gentle. Let's get out of this crowd. She followed because she had no choice, her long legs easily keeping pace with his shorter human stride. The market square bustled with activity. Vendors selling everything from fresh bread to farming equipment. Children running between the stalls, dogs barking at nothing in particular. It was the kind of ordinary human life that seemed alien to her now, a world she moved through but could never be part of. Owen led her through the streets of Milford to where a sturdy wagon waited, hitched to two patient draft horses. The wagon bed was filled with supplies, sacks of grain, tools, bolts of fabric, barrels of what might have been ale or oil. He secured the chain to the wagon's side and climbed up onto the driver's seat. We have about 2 hours of travel ahead, he said, glancing back at her. There's water in the barrel behind you if you're thirsty. Karga stared at him, waiting for the other boot to drop, for the cruelty that always came eventually. But he simply clicked his tongue at the horses and set them moving, the wagon creaking as it rolled over the rutted road leading out of town. She reached for the water barrel with her bound hands, managing to work the spigot and cup some of the cool liquid in her palms. It tasted clean, sweet even, nothing like the stagnant troughs she was usually given. She drank carefully, aware of how her body had learned to ration everything, to never trust that more would come. The road wound through farmland, fields of young wheat and barley stretching toward distant tree lines. Spring was settling into the land, bringing green life to everything it touched. Karga had not paid much attention to seasons in the quarries. Every day was the same. Wake before dawn, work until dark, collapse onto a thin pallet in the slave quarters, repeat. But out here, under the open sky, she could smell the earth warming, hear birds calling to their mates, feel the sun on her face without the oppressive weight of stone dust in her lungs. You are probably wondering what I want with you, Owen said after they had been traveling for nearly an hour. His voice startled her from her thoughts. Most buyers make it clear enough, Karga said carefully. He glanced back, and she saw something that might have been anger flash across his features, though not directed at her. I'm not most buyers. I have a homestead about an hour west of Milford, near the edge of the Thornwood Forest. It is a good piece of land, but it is more than I can manage alone, especially with the trading I do. I needed help. You could have hired farmhands for less than 50 gold pieces. I could have, he agreed, but they would have been free to leave whenever they wanted, and good help is hard to find on the frontier. Besides, he paused, seeming to choose his words carefully. I figured you deserved better than that slaver. Karga laughed, a bitter sound. Better. I am still a slave. For now. She frowned, uncertain what he meant by that, but he did not elaborate. Instead, he began talking about his farm, describing the layout of the land, the crops he grew, the chickens and goats he kept. His voice was steady and calm, and despite herself, Karga found it soothing. She had not heard anyone speak to her like a person in so long that she had almost forgotten what it felt like. The homestead appeared as they crested a low hill, and Karga felt something unexpected stir in her chest. It was beautiful in a simple, honest way. The house was modest but well built, constructed of solid timber with a stone chimney rising from one end. A barn stood nearby, painted red with white trim, and beyond that stretched fields in various stages of cultivation. A vegetable garden grew beside the house, already showing the green shoots of early crops, and a small orchard of apple trees clustered on the southern slope. Owen guided the wagon to the barn and set the brake. He climbed down and walked around to where Karga stood, still chained to the wagon's side. From his pocket, he produced a different key, smaller than the one Declan had used. "This might hurt a little," he warned, then inserted the key into the lock on her collar. The moment the spelled iron opened, Karga gasped. She had grown so accustomed to the constant low-level pain of the enchantment that she had stopped noticing it, but its absence was immediately, startlingly clear. The collar fell away, and she raised her still-bound hands to her neck, feeling the raw, scarred skin there. Owen unlocked the wrist bindings next, and Karga rubbed at the deep grooves the iron had left in her green skin. She stared at her free hands at the man who had freed them, confusion warring with suspicion. "I do not understand," she said slowly. Owen met her eyes, and she saw that soft expression again, the one that made her want to weep or rage or both. "The slaver wanted 50 gold pieces. I paid it all. You work for no one now, Karga. You are free." The words did not make sense. They could not make sense. Freedom was not something that happened, not to orcs, not to slaves, not in this world. "Free," she repeated, the word strange on her tongue. "Free," he confirmed. "I brought you here because I thought you might want a place to recover, to figure out what comes next. The frontier is dangerous for anyone traveling alone, and I imagine you have nowhere else to go right now. So I am offering you a deal. Stay here, help me with the farm, and I will provide food, shelter, and wages. A silver piece a week to start, more if the harvest is good. When you have saved enough to go wherever you want, you can leave. No chains, no spells, no obligation beyond honest work for honest pay." Karga's mind reeled. This had to be a trick, some new form of cruelty she had not encountered before. Humans did not free orcs. They did not offer them wages and choices and respect. "Why?" she demanded, her voice harsher than she intended. "Why would you do this?" Owen's expression grew distant, sad. "Because 3 years ago I watched Imperial soldiers burn an orc village to the ground. I was traveling with a merchant caravan, and we came upon it the morning after. There were bodies everywhere. Elders, children, everyone. The soldiers said it was a justified raid, that the orcs had been raiding human settlements. Maybe that was even true. But I saw a little orcling, couldn't have been more than 5 or 6 years old, lying in the ashes with her doll still clutched in her hand, and I realized that monsters are not defined by the color of their skin or the shape of their teeth." His words hit Karga like a physical blow. 3 years ago. The timeline matched. The burning of her village, her capture, everything that had happened since. She had been 22 when the soldiers came, when they killed her mother and her younger brother, when they dragged the survivors away in chains. Could this human have been there? Could he have seen what she had seen? "I cannot undo what was done," Owen continued quietly. "But I can do this one thing. I can give you back what was stolen. So here it is, Karga. You are free. The question is, what do you want to do with that freedom?" Karga stood frozen, her mind a whirlwind of thoughts and emotions she could not untangle. Part of her wanted to run, to disappear into the forest and never look back. Part of her wanted to scream at this human and his pointless gestures, his 50 gold pieces that could never balance the scales of what had been taken. And part of her, the part that frightened her most, wanted to stay to see if his impossible offer was real, to know what it felt like to be free again. "I have nowhere to go," she said finally, the admission bitter as ash. "My clan is gone. Other orc settlements would not take me in. I have been a slave too long. I would be seen as tainted, weak." "Then stay here," Owen said, "at least until you decide what comes next." She looked at the house, the barn, the fields stretching toward the horizon. She looked at her bare wrists, still aching from the weight of absent chains. She looked at Owen, this strange human who had spent a fortune to free a slave and expect nothing in return, and she made a choice. I will stay, she said. For now. Owen's face broke into a smile, genuine and warm. Good, let me show you around and then we will get you something to eat. You look like you have not had a proper meal in months. He was not wrong about that. The house was larger inside than it appeared from the outside, with a main room that served as kitchen and living space, 2 bedrooms, and a small bathing room with a pump that drew water from a well. Everything was clean and organized, though clearly lived in. Books lined a shelf by the fireplace, and dried herbs hung from the rafters, filling the air with pleasant scents. You can take the spare bedroom, Owen said, opening a door to reveal a small but comfortable room with a real bed, a dresser, and a window overlooking the orchard. I will find you some clothes that fit better than those rags. There is soap and clean water if you want to wash up. Take your time. I need to unload the wagon anyway. Karga stood in the doorway of the room, staring at the bed with its thick quilts and soft pillows, and something inside her cracked. She had not slept in a real bed since before the burning. She had not had privacy or choices or kindness offered without expectation of something in return. Tears stung her eyes, and she blinked them away furiously, unwilling to show such weakness. But Owen had already gone, leaving her alone with her overwhelming emotions and the strange, terrifying gift of freedom. She moved to the bed and sat on its edge, testing its softness. The mattress gave beneath her weight, comfortable and supportive. She lay back, staring at the ceiling, and for the first time in 3 years, she allowed herself to truly feel the magnitude of what had been done to her, what had been taken, what had been lost. And then, in that small room in a stranger's house, Karga wept. When she finally emerged an hour later, washed and dressed in a simple work dress that Owen had left outside her door, she found him in the kitchen preparing food. The smell alone made her stomach clench with hunger. Real food, cooked with care and seasoning, not the watery gruel or stale bread that had sustained her in captivity. I made stew, Owen said, glancing up from the pot he was stirring. And there is fresh bread from town. Sit down, you need to eat. Karga sat at the wooden table, feeling awkward and out of place. The chair creaked under her weight but held. Owen ladled thick stew into a bowl and set it before her along with a chunk of bread still warm from the baker's oven. The steam rising from the bowl carried the scent of beef and vegetables and herbs that made her mouth water. She ate slowly at first, years of starvation rations having taught her body to be cautious. But the stew was rich and flavorful, and before she knew it, she was scraping the bottom of the bowl. Owen refilled it without comment, and she ate that too, and another piece of bread, until finally her shrunken stomach protested that it could hold no more. Better? Owen asked, a slight smile on his face. Better, Karga admitted. Thank you. You do not have to thank me for basic decency, he said, but there was no rebuke in his tone, only sadness. Though I suppose you have had precious little of that lately. They sat in silence for a moment, the comfortable quiet of a shared meal. Outside, the sun was beginning to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. Karga watched the light shift and change through the window, marveling at the simple fact that she could sit and watch a sunset, that no one was forcing her to work until she collapsed, that she had eaten until she was full. Tomorrow, I will show you the farm properly, Owen said, breaking the silence. You can decide what work you would like to do. I will not force you into anything. If you want to help with the planting, excellent. If you would rather tend the animals or work in the garden, that is fine too. This is your choice, Karga. Everything here is your choice now. Choice. The word still felt foreign, impossible, but Karga nodded, accepting it even if she did not yet fully believe it. That night, She lay in the comfortable bed in her private room and stared at the ceiling, unable to sleep despite her exhaustion. Freedom felt like a garment that did not fit right, something she had to learn to wear all over again. And Owen, with his soft eyes and his impossible kindness, was a puzzle she could not solve. What did he want from her? What was his angle? Everyone wanted something. But as the hours passed, and no one came to her door with demands or cruelty, as the house remained quiet and safe around her, Karga began to cautiously, fearfully hope that maybe, just maybe, he had told her the truth. The days that followed fell into a pattern that felt surreal in its normalcy. Owen woke at dawn and made breakfast for both of them. Simple fare, but more than adequate. After eating, he would head out to work the fields or tend the animals, and Karga would join him, learning the rhythms of the farm. She started with the vegetable garden, finding unexpected peace in the simple act of weeding and watering. Her hands, so accustomed to hauling stone and breaking rock, learned gentleness as she coaxed tiny seedlings from the earth. Owen worked nearby, plowing and planting the larger fields, always available to answer her questions but never hovering or controlling. In the evenings, they ate together and sometimes talked. Owen told her about his life, how he had inherited this land from his father, Otto Fairweather, a merchant who had dreamed of settling down but died before he could enjoy it. Owen had tried to honor that dream by building something sustainable here, though the isolation of frontier life was harder than he had expected. "I thought I wanted solitude," he admitted one night over dinner. "After years of traveling with caravans, dealing with people constantly, I thought peace and quiet would be paradise. But it turns out humans are social creatures. Even introverted ones like me need company sometimes." Karga had said little about her own past, and Owen never pressed. But slowly, carefully, she began to share small pieces. Her clan's name, Ironhide, her mother's skill with leatherwork, her younger brother's laugh. She did not talk about the burning or the soldiers or the years in chains. Those wounds were still too raw. But she found herself talking about simpler things. The taste of her clan's traditional blood wine, made from fermented berries and spices. The songs her mother used to sing while working. The way the northern lights would dance across the sky in winter, and how her brother would make up stories about the ancestor spirits causing the lights with their great battles in the sky. Owen listened to all of it with genuine interest, asking questions, remembering details. He treated her stories with the same respect he would give to any human's tales, and Karga found that more healing than any medicine. 3 weeks after her arrival, Karga woke to find Owen preparing to leave for Milford. "Supply run," he explained. "I go once a month to sell eggs and vegetables, buy things we cannot make here. I will be gone most of the day." "Will you be all right on your own?" The question made Karga pause. A month ago, the idea of being left alone and trusted not to run would have been unthinkable. Now, she realized she had no desire to run. This farm, this strange arrangement, had become something like safety. "I will be fine," she said. "I will work on the garden and check the fence line in the northern field like you mentioned." Owen nodded, but she saw something like relief in his expression, as if he had been genuinely worried she might bolt in his absence. He left shortly after, the wagon creaking down the road toward town, and Karga set about her tasks. The garden work went quickly with her orcish strength and increasing familiarity with the plants. By midday, she had finished and decided to tackle the fence line. Owen had mentioned that some of the posts were rotting and needed replacement, a job that required strength more than skill. She was hauling a new post into position when she heard voices from the road, 3 men on horseback heading toward the farm. Karga's first instinct was to hide, but she forced herself to stand her ground. She was free now. She had every right to be here. The men rode up to where she worked, their expressions ranging from curious to hostile. They were local farmers by the look of their clothes, probably Owen's neighbors. "Well, well," said the eldest, a grizzled man with a scar across his cheek. "What do we have here? An orc on Fairweather land?" "I work here," Karga said carefully, keeping her voice level. "Work here." The man spat into the dirt. "Fairweather's got himself a slave then, didn't figure him for the type." "I am not a slave," Karga said, her tusks baring slightly despite her best efforts to remain calm. "I am a hired worker." The three men laughed, the sound ugly and mocking. "Hired worker," the second man repeated. "That is rich, since when do orcs get hired? They get chained and collared, and even then they are more trouble than they are worth." "Owen Fairweather is a fool if he thinks he can trust your kind," the third added. "Everyone knows orcs are thieves and murderers. You will probably slit his throat in his sleep and take everything he owns." Karga's hands clenched into fists, her whole body tensing with anger and humiliation. This was what she had feared, what she had known would come eventually. The prejudice, the hatred, the assumption that she was nothing more than a monster wearing a person's shape. "I am no threat to Owen or anyone else," she said through gritted teeth. "I am just trying to do my work. So unless you have business here, I would ask you to leave." The scarred man's expression darkened. "You would ask us? You do not get to ask anything, orc. This is human land and you are here on sufferance at best." "I have half a mind to ride into town and report that Fairweather's harboring a dangerous creature." "Then do it," Karga snapped, her patience finally breaking. "Ride to town and waste your day filing false reports. I am sure the constable will be very interested in your opinions." The man's hand moved to the knife at his belt, and Karga tensed, ready to fight if necessary. She was unarmed, but she was strong, and she had been trained in combat before the burning. If these men wanted a fight, she would give them one. But before the situation could escalate further, another voice cut through the tension. "Is there a problem here, gentlemen?" Everyone turned to see Owen riding up the road on one of the draft horses, having apparently cut his trip short. His expression was calm, but his eyes were hard as he surveyed the scene. "Fairweather," the scarred man said, his hand dropping from his knife. "We were just checking on you, saw this orc on your land and got concerned." "Concerned," Owen repeated flatly. "How thoughtful. But as you can see, everything is fine. Karga works for me and she has every right to be here. Now, unless you have actual business with me, I would appreciate it if you left my land." The three men exchanged glances, clearly not expecting Owen to defend an orc so firmly. The scarred man's jaw worked as if chewing on words he wanted to say but did not quite dare. Finally, he jerked his horse's head around. "Your funeral, Fairweather. Do not come crying to us when she turns on you." They rode off, leaving dust and tension in their wake. Owen watched them go, then dismounted and walked over to where Karga stood, still rigid with anger and shame. "Are you all right?" he asked quietly. "I am fine," she said, but her voice shook slightly. "I am sorry. I should not have antagonized them." "You have nothing to apologize for," Owen said firmly. "They were trespassing and harassing you. You had every right to defend yourself." He paused, then added more gently, "I knew this might happen eventually. People around here are not used to seeing orcs as anything but enemies." "I am sorry you had to deal with that." Karga shook her head. "It is nothing I have not heard before, nothing I will not hear again." "Maybe," Owen agreed, "but you should not have to hear it, and for what it is worth, I think you handled it well. You stood your ground without escalating to violence, and you did not let them intimidate you." He smiled slightly. "I am proud of you." The word struck Karga like an arrow to the chest. Proud. When was the last time anyone had said they were proud of her? When was the last time she had done anything worth being proud of? The emotions swelling in her chest were too big, too complicated, and she did not know what to do with them. "Thank you," she managed, her voice barely above a whisper. Owen seemed to sense her discomfort and changed the subject. "I got you something in town. Come on, I will show you." He led her to where he had left his saddlebags and pulled out a package wrapped in brown paper. Inside was a set of work clothes tailored for someone of her size and build, along with a sturdy pair of boots. "I guessed at the measurements, but the seamstress said she could adjust them if they do not fit right," Owen explained. "I figured you deserved clothes that actually fit instead of making do with my father's old things." Karga held the clothes, running her fingers over the sturdy fabric. They were simple, practical garments, but they had been made for her, chosen for her, given to her as if she mattered. The lump in her throat grew larger. "This is too much," she said. "It is really not," Owen replied. "Consider it part of your wages. Everyone deserves clothes that fit properly." That night, Karga lay in bed wearing the new nightshirt Owen had also bought, softer than anything she had worn in years, and tried to understand what was happening to her. She had been free for nearly a month now, and every day that freedom felt more real, less like a dream she would wake from to find herself back in chains, but more confusing than the freedom was Owen himself. He was kind without being condescending, generous without expecting gratitude, firm in his defense of her but respectful of her ability to defend herself. He treated her like an equal, like a person of worth, and Karga was beginning to realize that somewhere along the way she had started to trust him. That trust terrified her. Trust was dangerous. Trust got you hurt. She had trusted that the Empire would leave her clan alone if they paid their tribute and stayed peaceful. She had trusted that the other slaves in the quarry would watch her back. She had trusted that if she just survived long enough, something would change. All of those trusts had been betrayed or proven foolish. Why should this be any different? But as the weeks turned into months and spring deepened into summer, Karga found her defenses slowly crumbling. Owen was relentlessly, persistently decent. He paid her wages exactly as promised, silver coins placed in her hand every week. He never entered her room without permission, never made demands beyond reasonable work expectations, never looked at her with anything other than respect and, increasingly, warmth. They worked side by side through the long summer days, planting and weeding and harvesting early crops. Owen taught her about crop rotation and soil management, irrigation techniques and pest control. Karga taught him orc methods of preserving meat and vegetables, showed him how to mix healing poultices from common herbs, shared songs in her native tongue that made the work go faster. In the evenings, they cooked together, a partnership that evolved naturally from mutual hunger and limited cooking skill. Owen was better with breads and baked goods, while Karga had a knack for soups and stews. They ate at the table, talking about everything and nothing, their conversations ranging from philosophical debates about the nature of justice to silly arguments about whether tomatoes belonged in fruit salads. "They are fruits," Owen insisted one evening. "That is a botanical fact." "They are vegetables," Karga countered. "You do not put them in sweet dishes, that makes them vegetables." "By that logic, peppers are vegetables too." "They are." Owen threw his hands up in mock despair. "I am arguing agriculture with an orc. This is my life now." Karga threw a bread crust at him, and he threw it back, and they both dissolved into laughter. It was such a normal moment, such an everyday interaction, and Karga realized with a start that she was happy. Actually, genuinely happy in a way she had not been since before the burning. The realization scared her so badly she excused herself early and retreated to her room, her heart pounding. Happiness was dangerous. Happiness meant having something to lose. She had lost everything once before. She could not survive losing it again. But the next morning, Owen greeted her with his usual smile and a plate of eggs, and Karga found she could not maintain her fear in the face of his steady, reliable kindness. So she sat down and ate breakfast, and they went out to work the fields together, and life continued in its strange, peaceful pattern. Summer brought more encounters with suspicious neighbors, though none as aggressive as that first confrontation. Some people simply stared when they saw Karga working the farm. Others made pointed comments about Owen's judgment or the dangers of trusting orcs. A few merchants in town refused to sell to Owen once word spread that he had an orc on his land. Owen handled each incident with calm firmness, never wavering in his support of Karga's right to be there. He found new merchants to trade with, befriended those who were more open-minded, and ignored the ones who were not. His loyalty was absolute, and Karga found herself both grateful for it and guilty about the social cost he was paying on her behalf. "You are losing business because of me," she said one evening after a merchant had loudly refused to buy Owen's eggs at the market. "I am losing business because Merchant Garrett is a bigoted fool," Owen corrected. "That is his failing, not yours. Besides, I found 3 other buyers who were happy to take the eggs at a better price. Garrett did me a favor by showing his true colors. Still, your life would be easier without me here." Owen stopped what he was doing and turned to face her fully. "My life would be lonelier without you here," he said seriously, "and easier is not always better. I would rather have you as a friend and deal with a few narrow-minded jerks than have an easy life that requires me to turn my back on what is right." Friend. The word settled into Karga's chest and took root there. When had they become friends? At what point had this arrangement shifted from employer and employee to something deeper, something that felt like genuine connection? "I have not had a friend in a very long time," Karga admitted quietly. "Neither have I," Owen said. "Not a real one. So I guess we are lucky to have found each other." They stood there in the fading light, the day's work done, the evening stretching before them, and something unspoken passed between them. Something that made Karga's breath catch and her heart race, something that felt dangerous and wonderful in equal measure. She turned away first, unsettled by the intensity of whatever that moment had held. "I should start dinner." "I will be in soon," Owen said, his voice slightly rough. "I just need to finish closing up the barn." Karga retreated to the kitchen, her mind whirling. She was developing feelings for Owen. Real, complicated, terrifying feelings that went beyond gratitude or friendship. The realization made her want to laugh and cry simultaneously. Of all the impossible things, this was perhaps the most impossible. An orc and a human in a world that saw such connections as abomination. It could never work. It should never be considered. And yet she found herself noticing the way the sunlight caught in Owen's hair. The strength in his hands despite their smaller size compared to hers. The kindness in his eyes and the gentle rumble of his laugh. The way he listened when she talked, really listened, as if her words mattered. She was falling for him, and there was nothing she could do to stop it. The summer solstice arrived with clear skies and warm breezes. Owen had mentioned that the nearby town of Thornhaven held a festival to celebrate, but he had not pressured Karga to attend, knowing that crowds of humans would likely not welcome her presence. But on the morning of the festival, Karga made a decision. She was tired of hiding, tired of letting fear and prejudice dictate her actions. If she was truly free, then she was free to go where she wanted, even if people did not like it. "I want to go to the festival," she announced over breakfast. Owen looked up, surprise clear on his face. Are you sure? I know how people can be. I am sure. I am tired of hiding on the farm because other people are uncomfortable. If I am your employee, your friend, then I should be able to attend public events like anyone else. A slow smile spread across Owen's face. All right then. We will go together. The festival was held in a large meadow near Thornhaven, decorated with ribbons and flower garlands. Musicians played lively tunes while dancers spun and leaped. Vendors sold everything from roasted meats to sweet pastries, handcrafted goods to festival games. Children ran everywhere, their laughter high and clear. Karga's arrival caused an immediate stir. Conversations stopped. People stared. A few parents pulled their children closer, protective and fearful. But Owen walked beside her with his head high, greeting people he knew with easy friendliness, acting as if there was nothing unusual about bringing an orc to a human festival. "Owen, good to see you," called a stout woman from behind a vendor's stall. "And this must be Karga, I have heard about you." Karga tensed, expecting hostility, but the woman's expression was curious rather than cruel. "I am Martha Alderson," the woman continued. "I sell preserves and honey. Owen has spoken well of your help on his farm." "Thank you," Karga said cautiously. "The work is good. Well, if you are in the market for honey, I have the best in 3 counties. Owen can vouch for that." "It is true," Owen agreed with a grin. "Martha's honey is legendary." They chatted for a few more minutes before moving on, and Karga felt some of her tension ease. Not everyone here was hostile. Some were simply curious. A few even seemed genuinely accepting. Owen bought them both meat pies and sweet cider, and they found a spot on the edge of the crowd to sit and watch the festivities. The dancing was lively and joyful, humans celebrating the height of summer with abandon. Karga found herself tapping her foot to the rhythm, remembering similar celebrations in her clan, though the music and steps had been different. "Do orcs have summer festivals?" Owen asked, following her gaze. "We did," Karga said. "The Festival of Long Light, we called it. 3 days of dancing and feasting, competitions and storytelling. The whole clan would come together." Her voice softened with memory. "My brother loved the wrestling competitions. He was small for an orc, but fast and clever. He won his age division 3 years running." "He sounds like he was remarkable." "He was." Karga's throat tightened. "He would have been 17 this summer, old enough to choose his trade, to court a mate if he wanted. He should have had a whole life ahead of him." Owen's hand found hers, his fingers lacing through her larger ones. The gesture was gentle, comforting, and Karga did not pull away. They sat like that for a long moment, hands joined, sharing grief for a boy who had deserved so much better than the death he got. "I am sorry," Owen said quietly. "For your brother, for your clan, for everything you have lost." "I know you are." And she did know. Owen's empathy was real and deep, not the shallow pity so many humans offered when they bothered to acknowledge orc suffering at all. They stayed at the festival until sunset, when the musicians struck up a slower, more romantic tune and couples began pairing off to dance. Owen stood and offered Karga his hand. "Would you like to dance?" Karga stared at him. "Here, in front of everyone. Why not? It is a festival. People are supposed to dance. They will stare. They will talk. They are already staring and talking. We might as well give them something worth watching." Karga looked at his outstretched hand, at his hopeful expression, and made another choice. She took his hand and let him lead her to the dancing area. They were immediately the center of attention, the only mixed pair on the floor. But Owen did not seem to care, and his confidence bolstered hers. He placed one hand at her waist, kept the other holding her hand, and began to move to the music. Karga was not familiar with human dances, but Owen led with patience and skill, murmuring quiet instructions when she stumbled. She was taller than him by more than a foot, broader and stronger, and they must have looked absurd together. But Owen looked at her as if she was the most beautiful thing he had ever seen, and Karga felt something in her chest crack open, spilling warmth through her whole body. "You are a good dancer," Owen said softly. "You are a liar," Karga replied, but she was smiling. "I keep stepping on your feet." "Only twice. I barely noticed." They turned in slow circles, the music wrapping around them, the watching crowd fading into irrelevance. In that moment, Karga felt like she was exactly where she was supposed to be, held safe in the arms of someone who saw her, truly saw her, and chose to stay anyway. When the music ended, Owen did not immediately let go. They stood together, hands still joined, eyes locked, and Karga knew that something fundamental had shifted between them. They were not just employer and employee anymore, not just friends. They were something more, something neither of them had named yet but both clearly felt. "We should head home," Owen said, his voice slightly rough. "It is getting late." They walked back to the farm in comfortable silence, the summer night alive with cricket song and fireflies. When they reached the house, they stood outside for a moment, neither quite ready to end the evening. "Thank you," Karga said, "for taking me to the festival, for dancing with me, for not caring what people think." "I do care what people think," Owen corrected gently. "I care what you think. Everyone else can hang." Karga laughed, the sound surprised out of her. Then, acting on impulse before she could second-guess herself, she leaned down and pressed a soft kiss to Owen's cheek. His skin was warm beneath her lips, and she felt him go very still. When she pulled back, his eyes were wide, his expression a mix of surprise and something that might have been hope. "Good night, Owen," Karga said, then fled to her room before she could do anything else foolish. She lay in bed that night, her fingers touching her lips, wondering what she had just started and whether she was brave enough to see it through. The weeks following the festival were both wonderful and agonizing. The attraction between Karga and Owen was now impossible to ignore, but neither of them seemed to know how to address it. They danced around each other, literally and figuratively, their interactions charged with a new awareness. Owen would brush against her while reaching for tools, and Karga would feel heat spread through her body. Karga would lift heavy sacks with ease, and she would catch Owen watching with an expression that made her breath catch. They found excuses to touch, hands lingering when passing things, shoulders bumping while working side by side, fingers grazing during dinner preparations. It was maddening. It was delicious. It was terrifying. Karga kept waiting for Owen to make a move, to say something about what was clearly happening between them. But he remained respectful to a fault, never pushing, never demanding. She wondered if he was waiting for her to make the first move to give him permission. Or perhaps he was as scared as she was, as uncertain about whether they could make this work. The uncertainty ended on a hot summer afternoon when a group of riders approached the farm. Karga recognized the lead rider immediately, Declan, the slaver who had sold her to Owen 3 months ago. Her blood ran cold. "Owen," she called, her voice sharp with alarm. Owen emerged from the barn, taking in the situation at a glance. His expression hardened. "Declan, you are not welcome here." The slaver grinned, showing yellowed teeth. Now, Fairweather, is that any way to greet an old business partner? I just came to check on my merchandise, make sure the collar is holding up." "She is not your merchandise anymore," Owen said flatly. "I bought her freedom, remember? You took my 50 gold pieces." "I sold you a slave," Declan corrected. "What you choose to do with her is your business, but she is still property according to imperial law." And I have been hearing interesting things about you treating that property more like a pet, bringing her to festivals, letting her work alongside you like she is an equal. That is dangerous thinking, Fairweather." "Get off my land," Owen said, his voice like ice. Declan's grin widened. "See, here is the thing. I have been thinking that maybe I underpriced that particular piece of merchandise. She is strong, well-formed, clearly intelligent enough to learn complex tasks. I could get 70, maybe 80 gold for her in the capital markets. So I am here to make you an offer. Sell her back to me for 40 gold and I will forget all about this little social experiment of yours. You will even make a profit on the deal." "No," Owen said. "Absolutely not. She is free and she is staying here." Declan sighed dramatically. "I was afraid you would say that." He gestured, and the 4 men with him dismounted, hands moving to weapons. "See, the law says runaway slaves can be recaptured by their legal owners. And since you never properly filed the manumission papers with the Imperial Registry, she is technically still registered as my property." Karga felt her world tilt. She had not known about manumission papers, had not realized that Owen's gesture of freedom was not legally binding without proper documentation. All this time, she had thought she was truly free, but she was still a slave in the eyes of the law. "That is a lie," Owen said, but his voice held a note of uncertainty. "Is it? When was the last time you dealt with imperial bureaucracy, farm boy? Did you really think handing over 50 gold was all it took? Slavery is regulated by the Empire. There are forms, procedures, official stamps required. You bought her, sure, but you did not free her. Not legally." Karga saw Owen's expression shift from defiance to horror as he realized Declan might be telling the truth. In his idealism, in his rush to do the right thing, he had not considered the legal complexities. And now that oversight was going to cost everything. "Even if that is true," Owen said desperately, "I can file the papers now. It is not too late." "It is too late the moment I reclaim my property," Declan said. He nodded to his men. "Take her." The men moved toward Karga and something inside her snapped. She had been a slave once. She would not be one again. Not ever. She grabbed the nearest tool, a heavy shovel, and swung it in a wide arc. The flat of the blade caught the first man in the chest, sending him sprawling. She spun, using her size and strength to her advantage, driving the other men back. "Karga, no," Owen shouted. "If you fight them, they will have legal justification to use lethal force." "I do not care," Karga snarled. "I am not going back in chains." 2 of the men drew swords, their faces grim. Karga knew she could not win against armed opponents, not with just a shovel, but she would fight anyway. She would die free before living enslaved. Before the situation could escalate further, a new voice cut through the chaos. "Hold. In the name of the Empire, hold." Everyone froze. A woman in imperial military uniform rode into the farmyard, her hand on her sword hilt, her expression severe. She was perhaps 40, with steel-gray hair and the bearing of someone accustomed to command. "Captain Renfield," Declan said, his grin faltering. "This is a private matter. A private matter that involves drawn weapons and imminent violence on imperial soil," the captain said coldly. "I think not. Someone explain what is happening here and do it quickly." Owen stepped forward. "Captain, my name is Owen Fairweather. 3 months ago I purchased this orc woman from slaver Declan for 50 gold pieces with the intent of freeing her. Declan claims I did not file proper manumission papers and therefore she is still legally his property. He is attempting to reclaim her by force." Captain Renfield's eyes narrowed. "Is this true, Declan?" The slaver's expression turned sly. "All true, Captain. The girl is registered as my property under imperial slave codes. Fairweather here bought her but never completed the legal process to free her. I am simply reclaiming what is mine. And you, Orc, the captain said, turning to Karga, what is your version of events? Karga met the woman's eyes, expecting prejudice or cruelty. But what she saw instead was a hard, impersonal fairness, the look of someone who cared about law and order above all else. Owen bought me from Declan and removed my collar and chains, Karga said, forcing her voice to stay steady. He told me I was free. He has treated me with respect and paid me fair wages for my work. I did not know there were additional legal steps required. I thought I was truly free. Captain Renfield was silent for a long moment, her gaze moving between Karga, Owen, and Declan. Finally, she spoke. Merchant Fairweather, did you or did you not intend to free this orc when you purchased her? I did, Owen said firmly. I do. That was always my intent. And do you have proof of purchase? I have a bill of sale signed by Declan. Fetch it. Owen ran to the house and returned moments later with a folded piece of parchment. Captain Renfield examined it carefully, her expression unreadable. This bill of sale is legal and binding, she said finally. It transfers ownership of one female orc slave from Declan to Owen Fairweather for the sum of 50 gold pieces, paid in full. She looked at Declan. You no longer have any legal claim to this orc. But the manumission papers, Declan started, are the responsibility of the current owner, not the former one, Captain Renfield cut him off. If Merchant Fairweather has not filed them, that is between him and the Imperial Registry. It does not give you the right to reclaim property you legally sold. Her voice turned hard. You came here with armed men to commit theft. I could have you arrested right now. Declan's face turned red with anger, but he was not stupid enough to argue with an Imperial captain. This is not over, he muttered, then gestured to his men. They remounted and rode off, leaving deep ruts in the farmyard. Captain Renfield watched them go, then turned back to Owen and Karga. Merchant Fairweather, I suggest you file those manumission papers as soon as possible. The process is not complicated, but it is necessary if you want her freedom to be legally recognized. I will, Owen said. Thank you, Captain. You saved us. I enforce the law, the captain corrected. Nothing more. She paused, then added more quietly, but for what it is worth, I think what you are trying to do here is admirable. The Empire's slave trade is a necessary evil at best, and I have little love for slavers who try to cheat the system. She looked at Karga. You are lucky to have found an honorable master. He is not my master, Karga said, unable to keep the edge from her voice. He is my employer and my friend. Something that might have been approval flickered in the captain's eyes. See that you file those papers, Fairweather. I would hate for this situation to repeat itself. She rode off, leaving Owen and Karga alone in the yard. For a moment neither of them moved. Then Karga's legs gave out and she sat down hard in the dirt, shaking with reaction. Owen dropped to his knees beside her. I am so sorry. I did not know about the papers. I swear I thought buying you was enough. I never meant to leave you vulnerable like this. I know, Karga said, her voice unsteady. I know you did not. But Owen, we have to file those papers. I cannot go through that again. I cannot. We will, Owen promised. Tomorrow, I will ride to the regional capital and file everything properly. You will be free, legally and completely. I swear it. Karga looked at him, at his earnest face and determined eyes, and felt her heart break open completely. This man had spent a fortune to buy her freedom, had defended her against his neighbor's prejudice, had risked his safety to stand between her and the slavers. And now, he was promising to ride 2 days to the capital to ensure her legal protection. Why? She asked, the question that had been burning in her chest for months finally spilling out. Why do you care so much? Why does my freedom matter to you? Owen's hands came up to cup her face, gentle and warm. Because you matter to me, Karga. Not as property, not as an employee, not even just as a friend. You matter to me as a person, as someone He paused, swallowed, then continued. As someone I have fallen in love with. The world seemed to stop. Karga stared at him, certain she had misheard. What? I love you, Owen said, his voice steady despite the fear in his eyes. I think I started falling the moment I saw you in that market, standing there with your head high despite everything they had done to you. And every day since has only made it stronger. The way you laugh at my terrible jokes. The way you hum while you garden. The way you are kind even though the world has given you every reason to be cruel. I love you, Karga, and that is why your freedom matters so much to me. Because I cannot love you truly if you are not truly free to choose. Tears streamed down Karga's face, hot and unstoppable. No one had ever said such words to her. No one had ever offered love without conditions, without expectations, without chains. I am an orc, she said, the words barely a whisper. The world will never accept us. Then the world can go hang, Owen said fiercely. I do not care about the world, I care about you. If you do not feel the same, if this is not what you want, I will still file those papers and I will still honor your freedom and we can go back to being just friends. But I needed you to know. I needed you to understand why I will move heaven and earth to keep you safe. Karga's hands covered his, pressing them more firmly against her face. I love you too, she said, the words feeling like both freedom and surrender. I have been falling for you for months, and I have been so scared because I did not think I could survive losing you. But I love you, Owen. I love your kindness and your strength, and the way you see me as a person when everyone else sees a monster. Owen's face broke into a smile so bright it rivaled the sun. Then he was kissing her, or she was kissing him, and it did not matter who started it because they met in the middle with fierce, desperate joy. His lips were soft against hers, his hands gentle in her hair, and Karga felt like her heart might burst from the sheer, overwhelming rightness of it. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Owen rested his forehead against hers. I am going to file those papers, he said. And then I am going to come back here and court you properly, with flowers and romantic gestures and everything you deserve. Karga laughed, the sound watery with tears and joy. I do not need flowers, I just need you. You are getting flowers anyway, Owen said firmly. You are getting everything, Karga, everything I can give you. They sat in the farmyard as the sun set, holding each other, and Karga marveled at how far she had come. From a slave in chains to a woman in love, from despair to hope, from survival to truly living, the road ahead would not be easy. The world would not magically become accepting just because they loved each other. But for the first time in years, Karga believed that maybe, just maybe, they could build something beautiful despite it all. Owen left for the capital at dawn the next morning, promising to return as quickly as possible. Karga watched him go with her heart in her throat, terrified that something would go wrong, that Declan would find a way to interfere, that the Empire would refuse the manumission for some arbitrary reason. But she forced herself to have faith. Owen had not failed her yet. While he was gone, Karga threw herself into farm work, channeling her nervous energy into productivity. She repaired fences, weeded the entire garden, reorganized the barn, and completed a dozen other tasks that had been waiting for attention. The work helped, but the nights were long and lonely, and she found herself sleeping in Owen's room instead of her own, surrounded by his scent, finding comfort in the space he occupied. 3 days later, Owen returned. Karga was in the garden when she heard the wagon, and she dropped her tools and ran to meet him, dignity forgotten in her desperate need to see him safe. He climbed down from the wagon, dust-covered and exhausted, but his face was lit with triumph. From his satchel, he pulled a thick parchment sealed with an official-looking stamp. "Certificate of manumission," he read aloud. "Be it known that the orc woman Karga, formerly property of licensed slaver Declan Voss, has been legally freed by her owner Owen Fairweather. She is henceforth a free person under imperial law, with all rights and protections afforded therein. Signed by Imperial Magistrate Helena Cross, witnessed and sealed this 23rd day of summer." Karga took the parchment with shaking hands, staring at the words that changed everything. Free. Not just free in practice, but free in law. No one could reclaim her now. No one could drag her back into chains. She was fully and truly her own person. "It is real," she whispered. "It is real," Owen confirmed. "You are free, Karga, completely legally, irrevocably free." She looked up at him, at the man who had given her everything and knew what she wanted to do with her freedom. "Ask me," she said. Owen blinked. "Ask you what? You said you wanted to court me properly, so ask me. Ask if you can court me." Understanding dawned in Owen's eyes, followed by a smile so tender it made Karga's heart ache. He took her hands in his, formal and serious despite the joy radiating from him. "Karga, freedwoman and keeper of my heart, would you do me the honor of allowing me to court you? To build a life with you, to stand beside you, to love you for as long as you will have me?" "Yes," Karga said, laughing and crying at once. "Yes, 1,000 times yes." Owen pulled her into his arms, and they stood there in the farmyard, holding each other while the summer sun shone down, and the world continued turning around them. The courting that followed was both wonderful and complicated. Owen was true to his word about flowers, presenting her with wildflower bouquets picked from the meadows. He cooked her favorite meals, left little notes around the house expressing his affection, and generally behaved like a man completely smitten. Karga, for her part, found herself learning how to be courted, how to receive affection without suspicion, how to trust that Owen's feelings were real and lasting. She made him orc courting gifts in return. A carefully woven belt in the traditional patterns of her clan, a set of throwing knives she had forged in the barn's small smithy, a poem in her native language that she translated for him about strength and honor, and the courage to love across boundaries. They stole kisses in the fields and held hands during dinner. They talked late into the night about everything from philosophy to farming techniques. They learned each other's bodies slowly, carefully, with reverence for the trust required to be so vulnerable. But the outside world remained hostile. Word of their relationship spread through the neighboring communities, and the backlash was swift. Several of Owen's former trading partners refused to do business with him anymore. Someone left a dead rat on their doorstep with a note calling them abominations. A traveling preacher stopped by to warn them that interspecies relations were against the natural order. Through it all, Owen and Karga stood firm. They refused to hide their relationship or pretend to be anything other than what they were. Two people in love trying to build a life together. The real test came in late autumn, when a delegation from the imperial governor's office arrived at the farm. The leader was a pompous official named Bartholomew who looked at Karga with barely concealed disgust. "We have received complaints," he announced without preamble, "regarding the nature of the relationship between a human citizen and a freed orc on this property. Such relationships, while not technically illegal, are considered contrary to public morals and social order. I am here to investigate and determine if any action needs to be taken." "What action could possibly need to be taken?" Owen asked, his voice dangerously calm. "We are two free adults in a consensual relationship. We are not breaking any laws. Perhaps not in letter, Bartholomew said, but certainly in spirit. The Empire has policies encouraging separation of the races for the good of society. Mixing breeds resentment and confusion. I am sure you can see the wisdom in maintaining clear boundaries. I see bigotry dressed up as policy, Owen said flatly. Bartholomew's expression hardened. Mind your tongue, farmer. I have the authority to make your life very difficult if I choose. Then do it, Karga said, stepping forward. Owen tried to hold her back, but she shook him off gently. Go ahead and use your authority to punish two people for loving each other. I am sure that will reflect well on the Empire's justice. You forget your place, orc, Bartholomew sneered. No, Karga said quietly. I know exactly what my place is. My place is here on this farm with the man I love, and no amount of prejudice or intimidation will change that. You can make life difficult for us, certainly. But you cannot make us stop loving each other. That is not within your power or anyone else's. Bartholomew looked between them, his expression sour. Finally, he said, I will be reporting that this household is engaged in activities contrary to public morals. What the governor chooses to do with that information is out of my hands, but I warn you, farmer, you are courting disaster with this. Liaison. Noted, Owen said. Now get off my land. After the official left, Karga and Owen held each other, both shaken by the encounter. They are not going to let us be, are they? Karga asked. Probably not, Owen admitted. But I do not care, Karga. I do not care what they think or what they threaten. You are worth fighting for. So are you, Karga said fiercely. We are worth fighting for. And fight they did. When the governor's office sent a letter suggesting Owen pay a social stability tax for employing a freed orc, he sent it back with a polite refusal and a detailed legal argument about why such a tax would be unconstitutional. When neighbors spread rumors that Karga was dangerous and unstable, she made a point of attending every community event she could, demonstrating through quiet dignity that she was no threat. Slowly, grudgingly, some of the hostility began to ease. Not from everyone, there would always be those who saw orcs as monsters regardless of evidence, but from enough people that life became more bearable. Martha Alderson remained a friendly contact, and even introduced Karga to other merchants who were willing to look past species. Captain Renfield stopped by once, ostensibly to check on how the manumission was working out, but really, Karga suspected, to see how they were holding up. You are making this harder than it needs to be, the captain said, though not unkindly. You must know that. We know, Owen said. We do not care. Captain Renfield smiled slightly. Good. The world needs more people willing to make it hard. As autumn turned to winter, Karga and Owen settled into their life together with increasing confidence. They worked the farm through the harvest, preserving vegetables and storing grain for the cold months ahead. They reinforced the house against winter storms and stocked the woodshed. They made plans for next year's planting, discussing crop rotation and possible expansion. One snowy evening in deep winter, as they sat by the fire with Owen reading aloud from a book of poetry, he suddenly stopped mid-sentence. "Marry me," he said. Karga looked up from the sock she was darning. "What, marry me?" Owen repeated, setting the book aside and turning to face her fully. "I know it is not legal, not in the Empire. They will not recognize a marriage between human and orc, but I do not care about their recognition. I want to marry you, Karga. I want to stand before whatever gods or spirits or forces you believe in and pledge my life to yours. I want you to be my wife in every way that matters." Karga's hands had gone still, the sock forgotten. "Owen, you do not have to answer now," he said quickly. "Think about it. Take all the time you need, but I wanted you to know that this is not just a romance for me, not just an arrangement. I want forever with you. I want to build a family if you want that too. I want to grow old on this farm with you by my side. I want everything, Karga, and I want it with you." Karga set aside her darning and moved to kneel in front of him, taking his hands in hers. "Yes," she said simply. Owen's eyes widened. "Yes, yes, I will marry you. By orc tradition or human tradition or whatever mixture we create ourselves. Yes to forever, yes to family, yes to growing old together. Yes to all of it, Owen, yes." He pulled her into his arms, kissing her with a passion that still made her dizzy even after months together. When they broke apart, both were grinning like fools. "When?" Owen asked. "Spring," Karga decided. "The festival of new growth in my clan was always the traditional time for marriages." "We will marry in the spring when everything is coming back to life." "Spring it is," Owen agreed. "We will need to figure out the ceremony, blend both our traditions." They spent the rest of the winter planning their wedding. Since no human clergy would officiate and there were no orc elders nearby, they decided to create their own ceremony, pulling from both cultures. Karga taught Owen the traditional orc marriage vows, which emphasized strength, honor, and partnership in all things. Owen shared human traditions of ring exchanges and public declarations. They would hold it on the farm, they decided, with whatever guests were willing to come. It would be small and probably unconventional, but it would be theirs. As word of the impending marriage spread, reactions were predictably mixed. Some neighbors sent messages of disapproval or outright hostility. But others, particularly those who had gotten to know Karga over the past year, sent cautious congratulations. Martha Alderson offered to make the wedding cake. Captain Renfield, of all people, sent a note saying she would attend if duty allowed, which Owen and Karga both found unexpectedly touching. Spring arrived with its usual fanfare of new growth and warmer weather. The fields needed planting, but Owen and Karga set aside one day for their wedding, refusing to let practical concerns overshadow the importance of the commitment they were making. The morning of their wedding dawned clear and bright. Karga dressed in a gown she had sewn herself, using fabric Owen had bought in town. It was a blend of orcish and human styles, green to match her skin, with intricate embroidery along the hems. She wore her hair loose, as was traditional for orcish brides, with flowers woven into the dark strands. Owen wore his best clothes, a dark blue tunic and pants that brought out his eyes, with a vest Karga had made for him. He looked nervous and excited in equal measure as guests began arriving. The turnout was smaller than a human wedding might have been, but more than Karga had dared hope. Martha and her family came, along with several other merchants who had befriended them. Captain Renfield appeared in dress uniform, lending unexpected legitimacy to the proceedings. A few curious neighbors showed up, though whether from support or spectacle was unclear. The ceremony took place in the meadow behind the house, with early spring flowers blooming all around. Owen and Karga stood facing each other, hands joined, while Martha served as witness and officiant, reading from notes they had prepared. "We gather here today," Martha began, her voice carrying across the small assembly, "to witness the union of two souls who have chosen each other despite all obstacles. This marriage may not be recognized by imperial law, but it is recognized by something far more important, the human heart and the strength of genuine love." Karga spoke her vows first in her native orcish tongue, then translated them. "I, Karga of the Ironhide clan, pledge myself to Owen Fairweather. I vow to stand beside you in times of plenty and times of struggle. I vow to honor your strength and support your weakness. I vow to build a life with you that honors both our peoples and creates something new. From this day forward, you are my mate, my partner, my chosen family." Owen's voice was thick with emotion as he spoke his vows. I, Owen Fairweather, pledge myself to Karga Ironhide. I vow to love you without reservation, to support you without condition, to stand with you against all who would seek to tear us apart. I vow to honor your past while building our future. I vow to see you, truly see you, every day for the rest of our lives. From this day forward, you are my wife, my partner, my heart. They exchanged rings, simple bands of silver that Owen had commissioned from a blacksmith in Thornhaven. As Karga slid the ring onto Owen's finger, she felt the weight of the commitment settle over her like a warm cloak. This was forever. This was real. By the power vested in me by absolutely no one except these two people, Martha said with a smile, I declare you married in the eyes of all who truly matter. You may kiss. Owen pulled Karga down to him, and they kissed to the applause and cheers of their small but supportive gathering. When they broke apart, both had tears on their cheeks, joy too big to be contained. The celebration that followed was simple but joyful. Martha's cake was delicious, and someone had brought instruments for music. They danced in the meadow, friends and family joining in, creating a celebration that transcended species and prejudice. As the sun set and guests began departing, Captain Renfield approached the newlyweds. Congratulations, she said formally. For what it is worth, I think you two are going to change things. Maybe not today, maybe not in ways you can see, but you are proving that different peoples can coexist, can even love each other. That matters more than you know. Thank you, Captain, Owen said. Your presence here meant a great deal. After everyone had left, Owen and Karga stood in their meadow, arms around each other, watching the first stars appear. We did it, Karga said softly. We are actually married. We are, Owen confirmed. How does it feel? Karga considered the question. How did it feel to be married to a man who had bought her freedom and then given her his heart? How did it feel to have gone from slave to wife, from property to partner? It feels like coming home, she said finally. Like after years of being lost, I finally found where I belong. Owen kissed her temple. You belong here, with me, always. They made love that night with a new intensity, the physical expression of the vows they had spoken. Afterward, lying tangled together in their bed, Karga felt a peace she had never known. The world might still be hostile. The Empire might never accept them. But they had each other, and they had built something real and lasting despite everything. That was enough. The years that followed were not without challenges. There were times when prejudice flared up, when hostile neighbors made life difficult, when the simple act of existing as a mixed-species couple felt like an act of defiance. But Owen and Karga faced each challenge together, their bond growing stronger with each test. In their second year of marriage, Karga gave birth to a daughter. The pregnancy had been difficult, as half-orc births often were, but both mother and child survived. They named her Vera, a name that meant truth in the old Orcish tongue, because she was the living proof that love could bridge any divide. Vera had Owen's green eyes and Karga's green skin, a perfect blend of both her parents. She was strong and clever, growing up on the farm with the certainty that she was loved exactly as she was. Owen and Karga raised her to be proud of both her heritages, teaching her human farming techniques and Orcish warrior traditions, human poetry and Orcish songs. 2 years after Vera came a son, whom they named Galen. He had more human features than his sister, but Karga's dark hair and strength. The children grew up playing in the fields, helping with farm work as soon as they were able, learning that family was defined not by species but by love and commitment. As word spread that Owen and Karga were raising healthy, well-adjusted half-orc children, something began to shift in the surrounding communities. It started small. A few questions from curious neighbors about how the children were being educated. A request from another mixed couple for advice on navigating imperial bureaucracy. An invitation for Vera to play with a neighbor's human child. Slowly, grudgingly, acceptance began to grow. Not everywhere, and not from everyone, but enough that Karga began to feel something she had never expected to feel in human lands. A sense of belonging to a community. Martha Alderson became the children's honorary grandmother, teaching them to bake and sharing stories of her own unconventional life. Captain Renfield, who had retired from the military, became a frequent visitor, showing Vera and Galen basic combat techniques and tactical thinking. Other mixed couples found their way to the farm, seeking advice or simply the comfort of knowing they were not alone. What had started as one man's decision to free one orc woman had grown into something larger. A small but growing movement challenging the Empire's racial hierarchies and proving that different peoples could not only coexist, but thrive together. 10 years after their wedding, Owen and Karga stood in the same meadow where they had married, watching their children play with a mixture of human and orc friends. The farm had prospered, expanding to include larger fields and more diverse crops. They had weathered droughts and harsh winters, hostile neighbors and imperial inspections, and emerged stronger each time. "You ever regret it?" Karga asked, leaning against Owen's shoulder. "Spending that 50 gold pieces, binding your life to mine." Owen turned to look at her, his expression tender. "The only thing I regret is that I did not find you sooner. Those 50 gold pieces bought me everything that matters. You, our children, this life we have built. It was the best investment I ever made." Karga kissed him, long and deep, still marveling after all these years that this man was hers, that they had created something beautiful out of what should have been impossible. "I love you," she said. "I love you too," Owen replied. "Forever." As the sun set over their farm, painting the sky in brilliant colors, Karga reflected on the journey that had brought her here. From the horrors of slavery to the miracle of love, from despair to hope, from chains to freedom, the slaver had wanted 50 gold pieces. The merchant had paid it all and told her she worked for no one now. But the truth was more complex and more beautiful than that simple transaction. Yes, Owen had freed her from legal bondage. But through his love and respect, through his unwavering commitment to seeing her as a person of worth, he had freed her from something far more insidious. The belief that she was less than human, that she deserved the cruelty the world had shown her. And in freeing her, he had freed himself from the prejudices of his society, from the limitations of what was considered acceptable or possible. Together, they had built a life that defied expectations and proved that love could transcend any boundary. Their children grew up strong and proud, ambassadors of a better future. Their farm became a haven for those who needed proof that different worlds could merge into something beautiful. Their love became a testament to the power of choosing compassion over cruelty, understanding over prejudice, hope over fear. Years later, when both Owen and Karga were old and gray, they would sit on their porch watching grandchildren play in the same fields where they had worked side by side decades before. They would hold hands, weathered and scarred but still strong, and remember the day in the market square when everything changed. A slaver wanting 50 gold pieces, a merchant willing to pay it all, and an orc woman learning that freedom was not just the absence of chains, but the presence of love, dignity, and choice. It was more than she had ever dared dream, and it was everything she never knew she needed. And it all started with one impossible, beautiful act of kindness. A man who looked at a slave and saw a person worth saving, worth knowing, worth loving. The merchant had paid 50 gold pieces and told her she worked for no one. But the truth was simpler and more profound. She worked for herself now, she chose for herself now, she loved for herself now. And that freedom, earned and given and cherished, was worth more than all the gold in the empire. Karga had been a slave. Then she had been freed. And finally, through love and struggle and persistence, she had become herself. A woman, a wife, a mother, a farmer, a friend. Whole and complete, no longer defined by what had been done to her but by what she chose to do with her freedom. And every day, for the rest of her long and happy life, she chose love. She chose Owen. She chose their family, their farm, their impossible, beautiful life together. The slaver had wanted 50 gold pieces, thinking he was selling just another piece of property. But what Owen bought that day was so much more than an orc slave. He bought the chance for both of them to become who they were truly meant to be. Partners, equals, lovers who proved that the boundaries society drew were meaningless compared to the connections two hearts could forge. It was a story that would be told for generations. The merchant who freed a slave and found his soulmate, the orc who went from chains to choosing her own destiny, the love that defied an empire and built something lasting in its place. And it all started with 50 gold pieces and a simple declaration that changed everything. You work for no one now. Freedom, love, family, home. These were the gifts Owen had given Karga when he paid that price. And these were the gifts Karga gave back 1,000-fold through every day they spent together, building a life that honored both their peoples and created something entirely new. Their story was not easy. It was not simple. But it was theirs, and it was real, and it was worth every challenge they faced. And when Karga finally passed, many years later, surrounded by children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren of every shade and blend, her final words were not of the horrors she had survived, but of the love she had found. Tell them I was free. Tell them I was loved. Tell them I chose this, all of this, and I would choose it again. And Owen, holding her hand as he had for more than 40 years, whispered back, I will, and I would choose you again too. Every time in every life I would choose you. That was their truth. That was their triumph. Two souls who found each other across the divides of species and circumstance, who built a love strong enough to change their world, one day and one choice at a time. The slaver had wanted 50 gold pieces. The merchant had paid it all. And in doing so, he had bought not a slave, but a future filled with more riches than any amount of gold could measure. This was their happy ending, hard-won and well-deserved. This was freedom in its truest and most beautiful form. And this was love, proving once again that it was the most powerful force in any world, capable of transforming even the darkest circumstances into light. Their farm stood for generations after, a symbol of what was possible when courage met compassion, when love conquered prejudice, when two people decided that the rules of society mattered less than the truth of their hearts. And somewhere in the heavens, the spirits of Karga's ancestors smiled, knowing that their daughter had not only survived but thrived, had not only endured but built something magnificent from the ashes of what was lost. The merchant paid 50 gold pieces and freed an orc woman. But really, they freed each other, and in doing so, they helped free the world from just a little bit of its darkness. And that, in the end, was the greatest payment of all.